So should you buy Triangle Strategy on Steam? So I have covered this game in detail on the Switch. I played this game for around 500 hours. Let's go over what's in the game and if you should buy it or not. So there have been some comments on Steam that I think are kind of misleading for people who might be interested in this game, where they're saying it's just like a story-driven game that doesn't have that much like tactical RPG gameplay, and it's mostly just like story. That's definitely not the case. You can skip all the story-driven stuff, like all the plot events, and just rapidly get to the tactical aspect of the game. To say that it's mostly story-driven is definitely false advertising. The game is mostly a strategy RPG. So there are 30 playable characters. Each character has unique mechanics, for the most part. Some have some overlap, like the archers all use bows, for example, but they do different things. So there's upgrades, there's different classes. There's the system called the quietest system, where you can use different abilities. So let's go to the trade post to check some of those out. I'm just going to go up here. There's a bunch of books I have to go through first. Alright, so you can see here that each one of these costs different QP in the parentheses down below. Each one of these, so you can get up to a total of 5 quietest points. Each one of these can be used when it's a unit's turn. They can't be used after a unit has moved or performed an action. So like as soon as it's one of your unit's turns, you can use one of these, and you only have 5 quietest points per battle. So these drastically change how you're going to approach things. So for example, Missed Opportunity can be used on an enemy boss to prevent it from taking a turn. You can also use Light Wave to teleport a thing. Restore is kind of like a cheap heal. So like if something's about to die, you can just spot heal it and remove conditions. Battle Cry grants TP, which is used for abilities. So, alright, let's go over the upgrades and stuff like that. Or actually, let's go back to this guy. So there's a promotion system. There's 3 tiers for each class. There's Starter, there's Veteran, and then there's Elite. So Starter has 3 diamonds, so like you can use abilities that cost 3 diamonds or less. Each match you start out with 3 diamonds. They're called TP. When you use abilities, you regenerate 1 diamond per turn. And then Veteran, you have 4, and then Elite, you have 5. So there's the sense of progression where you get new abilities. So you can see here, this character, Serenoa, the main character, most of his abilities are cheap. He does have an ability that costs 4 TP. It's not shown here, but you can see that he has a lot of things for like 1 and 2 TP. Each unit's different. So you can see you have like mounted units. This dude's like a hit and run guy. He does really good damage. He's one of the best fresh save units. So there's 2 things to note too. There's fresh save, and then there's New Game Plus. New Game Plus, some people think is harder. If you know what you're doing, it should be easier. But essentially, it makes the enemies continue to scale and level, and you scale with them, and then everyone caps at 50. So on fresh save, you have access to certain abilities. You need to level up and get to your endgame elite classes. And then on New Game Plus, it's all endgame stuff plus, unique unlocks. So there's a lot of potential for replay value, a lot of potential for different team comps. Pretty much everything is viable. There isn't a character that isn't viable. You can see here this unit's on a bird. She can fly up and down terrain. You have units like this. It's like a physical tank who's weak against magic. You also have this dude who can lay down traps, put things to sleep, deal single target damage. This guy is one of the best characters in the game. He's an ice mage. He has some crazy abilities. He can make ice tiles, and then he gets extra TP each turn while standing on ice. This dude is known as a battery. He uses Moment of Truth to boost your dude's attack and strength, or your strength and magic, and then also gives TP to allies. So he's like a battery, meaning he batteries TP while also giving a damage boost. So there's different characters. There's like bruisers, assassins, crowd control units, shutdown, damage units. This unit's very unique in that she's stronger the fewer units you run, so you can run her with like a small team comp and she's like insane. It's basically like having a boss on your side. It's pretty interesting. Some of these units might be a spoiler. I guess I could include that, but maybe I should have mentioned that earlier, but it's whatever. Honestly, like if you're just here for the gameplay, it doesn't matter, but okay. So some of those units are kind of a spoiler to some degree, but like I'm the type of person that I don't care about spoilers, and I look up everything before I even play the game. But that being said, let's look at the upgrade system. So Each character has upgrades. Their upgrades are unique to them. So you can see here, like, these switch out, the amount of upgrades available switch out. They're unique to that character. So for example, this healer can get range +1, so that she has a healing range of 5 instead of 4, which does matter. Every character also has a unique, like, ultimate ability, essentially, that costs usually 3 to 5 TP. So Dragon Shield, in this case, gives up to 5 allies 1 hit of invincibility, so they can all tank a hit, and this can be used at insane range. So this is his ultimate. Hers is putting res on someone, so that when they die, it's negated, and they res with full health, and doesn't count as a death. And then Deadly Blaze is like a debuff. Shooting Star, it's like a single target damage spike. King Shield is insane, automatically furies everything within its range of 1 to 2, and then he becomes invincible. So enemies are forced to attack Eridor, but he's also invincible, which is pretty nice. But you have a good mix of, for your first playthrough, you have to manage your resources because it's hard to get money, and you can grind, but it takes a while. But if you just want to play without grinding, you need to buy these resources, which they're finite and scarce on your first playthrough, and then they become like infinite or just like high stock on New Game Plus and New Game Plus Plus. New Game Plus is similar. It's like kind of hard. It's definitely about as hard as Fresh Save. If you're doing deathless, that means no one dies, including green units. The game is significantly harder, especially on New Game. If you're just playing to win on hard mode, it's not that bad. You can lose like 50%, sometimes 80% of your forces and still narrowly win. A lot of the mistakes you'll be making early on are just like bad positioning and just not understanding how the units work. I have guides in every single unit, so if you want to check those out, feel free to. Aside from that, on your first fresh save, you have to really choose which upgrades to focus on. I have guides on that. I have upgrade guides. Certain upgrades are better than others. There's also healing items. There's damage items. You can buy oil, for example, and then set it on fire. You can also throw ice stones or like create ice and then melt it with fire stones or with fire, and then also use lightning or lightning stones on that newly created water, which then sends the shock. Like if you shock water, it spreads. So it's very much like Bioshock in that way, where abilities combo and work together, and there's environment effects. So for example, if you use a windstone on a fire, like if there's a fire on the ground, use a windstone, it'll spread it to adjacent tiles and also cause damage. So it's kind of neat. Then there's artifacts. There's store-bought artifacts, and then there's hidden artifacts. There's kind of like explore sections of the game where you can like talk to characters in between plot moments. And then you can find specific rare artifacts. There's also huge replay value because, let me see if I can access it here. There's actually different paths to find. So when you play the game, so the reason why New Game Plus is interesting is there are forks in the game, right? So like there's certain chapters are always the same, like 1, 2, and 3 are always the same, and then 3 forks here. And then it like connects again at 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and then there's a fork here. There are unique artifacts and characters on certain paths that unlock when you pursue those paths. So when you do New Game Plus, it's a guarantee that there are certain characters you haven't gotten yet because of the fact that you need to go on a certain path to unlock them. So there's big replay value. The maps present different challenges. So you can see here, there's like a 3 fork here, then a 2 fork here, then it reconnects for 9, then forks off into 2 different ones. And I actually missed a chapter here. You can see there's an empty fork. So there's a third one here, potentially a fourth as well. And then there's forks here, and then look at that, it says 5. I'm sorry, 5. My math is great. 4. And then there's 4 here. So there's quite a lot. These forks represent individual unique chapters. So there's different endings, as you can see here. And then there's an ending called the Golden Route that's the longest and the hardest, where it's the best ending, obviously. But there's quite a lot here. There's a lot of content. There's a lot of chapters, a lot of unique challenges like present. There's a lot of different team comps. Every unit's viable on every difficulty. Now, if you're doing fresh save deathless, meaning that you're going to beat the game without any single unit dying, There, like I can go over that briefly. It's an actual official challenge. It's not a game mode, but you get an item for it. The item's kind of weird. It's what is it? Phoenix necklace, I want to say. Or I don't have it on this one, do I? I think it's on my other account, my other save. But it's or Plume of Immortality. So if you beat every single chapter without any of your units or any green units dying, and a death means the unit is killed and removed. If you have a resurrection, like Earring, that doesn't count as a death. If you have a Gila res, which is the ability I showed earlier, that doesn't count. But if you do Deathless, you get an actual reward for it. So if you want a serious challenge, try Deathless. If you just want to get used to the game, I'd recommend like normal or hard mode. I don't play on normal mode, but hard mode, fresh save is fine. You know, some of your units will probably die as you're learning the ropes. But it depends on how many games you've played like this. It's very much like Final Fantasy Tactics. But there's different units that all do different things. There's like shutdown conditions. There's chances for things to happen. There's the quietest system. So I'll go through like a mock battle really quick just to show an example. So let's do this bridge one. I won't do the whole thing. I'll just show like a demo battle, just so you can get a feel for what the game actually plays like. I wanted to go over the systems because some people on Steam were just kind of saying, "Oh, this game is just like it's not really a strategy game." But no, it definitely, like, I don't like story-driven games because I just want gameplay. I play a lot of chess, TF2, Guild Wars 1. I just want like gameplay now. So like when a game is too story heavy, I tend to check out. But in this game, it's definitely not so story heavy that it's not fun or something. Alright, so this is the basic thing of the game. So let's use a quietest, for example. So let's light wave Eridor. So Eridor is a tank. We're going to light wave to teleport him. This is used to position him better so that he can use a provoke to put fury on enemies, which forces enemies to attack him. So now we can move him over here. He can provoke. 75% chance of succeeding. So he was able to fury both of those. Now Eridor, very strangely, if you get hit in the sides or the back, you have enemies and you have increased accuracy when hitting in the sides or the back. When hitting in the back, it's guaranteed crits. Eridor has steel back, which means that he actually takes less damage getting hit from the back, but enemies can't recognize this and will hit him in the back, and he actually can tank more damage. And then Anna is an interesting character. She's an assassin. She can actually do a few different things here. She can climb. So for example, she can surmount to climb up one. She can act twice. This is unique to her. Every turn she can act twice. And then if I wanted to, I could surmount. I actually can't surmount that because it's too high. But I did that to get an extra move in. And I guess I'll just have her take cover. So she'll be invisible to enemies. They can't perceive her. She'll be revealed if an enemy ends its turn facing you. But if you're to the side or behind an enemy, you can still be invisible. Then you have Milo. She has a bunch of different abilities. She can actually move through obstacles. You can see here she's not impeded by the barricade other units would be. This is unique to her. She can also moon jump, which is unique to her as well. So she can move and then moon jump. And then she can also act again after moon jumping. So she has unique mechanics as well. She's very like mobile. Huette can just fly up and down. You can see here she can just fly up and down this. Her and this other unit, Flanagan, are on birds. They're the only units that can fly. Flying is extremely useful on certain maps with height changes because it allows units to have just like free mobility. Like no other unit can do this. Just like fly down here. Flight is ridiculous. She also can debuff and just like deal damage. Alright, then this dude, Maxwell. He's kind of a bruiser. He can also traverse, which just means he can just like move. He can jump 3. He can use that to climb high ground to get more movement in. And then he can also throw a spear, throw items. So in this case, I'll throw an item. He has a unique ability where if he hits multiple things with a single attack, they take extra, or he doesn't take extra damage. He gains an extra TP. 2 birds, 1 stone, so that'll trigger. So I threw ice tiles on the ground. Ice reduces movement and accuracy by 10% of your units and enemies. So I've just reduced these enemies' accuracy by 10% and their move by 1 by doing this. And then I can have Archibald run up here. He's pretty cool because he has this crazy long-range attack. He's kind of like a siege weapon. So he can hit that archer on high ground with Inescapable Arrow. People love Archibald because of this. He has a few other abilities that are good, but that's one of the main reasons people like him. Roland, he's mounted. He has pretty good mobility. He has some cool lane nuking attacks. So we'll get in there and do a lane nuke. Flash of Steel. You got 2 crits on those dudes. This dude's gonna shoot someone. So we shot Roland. You can see down below the turn order. If you hit Y, this is on a controller on Steam, it'll be whatever, but you can see which order people go in. So these guys have turn 6 and 9. And you can see I have turn 1 on Serenoa, 2 is Benedict, 3 is Piccoletta. So I'll have Serenoa just like run over here. And just pass his turn. Alright, then Benedict has Dragon Shield, which is pretty good. So you can have people tank. Now if you have as many as 5 things in a plus shape, he can put Dragon Shield on all of them, and it only ends when they get hit, so it lasts forever. So he can theoretically put this on your entire team if you have time for it. So Piccoletta, she's interesting. She's an item unit. She can throw items very far, as you can see here. She can throw this item very far. She has damage scaling on her items. She can also create decoys that enemies love to attack because they have bad stats, and enemies prioritize units with bad stats. But in this case, I'll just have her throw an item. For pretty big damage. Those dudes are almost dead.
Cool heads shall prevail.
Gila is a healer. She can move and heal. So she'll just run up, heal Roland.
Sorry to worry you.
So this gives you a kind of good idea of like how the team works, right? Like you have damage units, you have shutdown units, you have healers, you have utilities. It's a very fun game, and if you know what you're doing, it just gets even more interesting, and you can run even crazier things and get away with doing sillier stuff. But it's definitely worth playing if you enjoy strategy games, and I know Steam doesn't have that many strategy games on it. You can see there, Eridor sometimes counterattacks when things are next to him that attack him. So there's a lot of depth here, and it's very fun, and having played it for 500 hours and made over 100 videos in this game, I can definitely recommend it to people who like sRPGs. And for people who like a challenge, there are 2 ways of playing that make the game significantly harder. One of them is deathless, which is an official challenge, in that if you have none of your units die, you will get an item for that, the Plume of Immortality. So it's an unofficial challenge in the game, but it's official in that it gives you an actual item. And then there's an unofficial challenge that players run called itemless, where you don't allow using items. I'm iffy on itemless. If I were to do itemless, I would still allow like units like Piccoletta to use items, because most of her kit is around using items, like item launcher, intense items. Like she's not really good if you can't use items. She's just okay. But with items, she's like not one of the best units in the game, but like definitely like high A tier, maybe A plus tier. She's just really good. But certain units like Anna, if Anna can use items, she's insane. Here's why. She can act again. So like for example, I can do pretty substantial damage to this dude by using items.
For you.
So act again. Or act twice, rather. Act again is actually a different ability. But you can see there she put a single enemy down to almost half. Just by using items. So Anna with items is insane. And then Eridor here. Let's do this. Let's use Fleet-Footed. There's also Knockback. I'm going to show that, and then that'll kind of wrap it up. Alright, so everyone's movement's increased. Ram foe. Check this out. If he hits, he should though. Later. That's still so satisfying. So knockback is a thing. Certain units can knock enemies off of high ground, and some enemies can knock you off of high ground. So you have to pay attention to your positioning and what enemies can do. You can always check out what enemies can do by hitting Y on them. But I pushed him from the high ground, and now this archer can't hit anyone except for Anna down here. And he has to climb, and he took extra damage from falling, and the fall damage scales based on the amount of distance that you fall. So there's definitely a lot of depth to this game, and it's very, very fun, to be honest. Like, I had a really good time covering it and playing it. And yeah, that's it for this one. Definitely recommend this game. There's also cool things like this, like Tempt. So like Heart Stealer, 80% Tempt. So what Tempt does is now that enemy will attack other enemies for 2 turns. Now the Tempt can be broken when it takes like a lot of damage, but enemies will also attack it as well. So it's a pretty useful crowd control thing, but there's a lot of conditions, there's a lot of unit types, there's a lot of team comps, there's a lot of items, there's a lot of combinations, there's a lot of depth here. This game, you can easily play this game for like 100 to 200 hours, beat the game once, New Game Plus, go for the golden route, New Game Plus again, try deathless. Like, there's so many different things you can do. You can try deathless and itemless. That's like the hardest way to play the game on hard mode. But your first playthrough, if you're not used to strategy games especially, you'll probably get stomped. And, you know, just beating the game on, like, just normally, not even doing deathless, probably will be a challenge. But yeah, that's pretty much it for this one. I highly recommend this game. It's pretty fun. I have guides on everything for it as well, so you can check those out if you want. And that's it for this one. Definitely like and subscribe if you found this useful, and I'll see you in the next one.